Hey everyone, welcome back to the channel. So today I got another quick tip video and we're going to be using this vehicle on the lift here to show you the best example. Now behind me is a '07 Honda Pilot and today's topic is going to be overlooked fluids, certain things on vehicles such as this that are all-wheel drive that most customers or consumers they just overlook and they forget that they have to do as a part of maintenance, and I'm going to share this with you today. Now before we go ahead and begin, if you haven't subscribed to the channel, hit the subscribe button down below. Definitely smash that like button because it helps the channel out. And with that said, let's go ahead and get started on today's video. So before I go ahead and show everyone and get up underneath this car, I'm going to talk about what I'm referring to. So behind me, this '07 Pilot is a standard Honda Pilot, 3.5 liter. It has around 100,000 miles, but it's not really the main point of the subject. The only reason why I'm using this vehicle is to show you what we're going to be talking about. And that is the overlooked fluids on all-wheel drive vehicles. Now, for most of time when you bought a vehicle and it was an SUV and you had 4x4, most people know in their heads that, hey, you have a transfer case, you have a rear differential, front differential, and those require service. Now, not all the time people will remember this, but typically when they buy a truck like an SUV or a pickup that has 4x4, it's somewhere in their mind that they will have to maintain that four-wheel drive system. And what I find is that when people buy vehicles like this Honda Pilot here that are all-wheel drive, they tend to forget that these cars also need maintenance on transfer cases and differentials. Now, not every single all-wheel drive car is going to have a transfer case, but they will have some sort of differential for the rear wheels, and it may or may not have a front differential depending on the setup. Now, some cars that are all-wheel drive will have a transfer case or a PTO, which stands for a power takeoff unit. That'll normally have oil in it. And then they have the rear differential that is typically driven by the drive shaft. And then the transmission will normally drive the front wheels, and that's all contained within the transmission. There's no front differential, or if it is, it's built inside of the transmission. Some of them have a power takeoff unit that has a drive in there that'll drive the front wheels and the rear wheels, and then you'll still only have a rear differential, but you still will have that front PTO transfer case. And they call them a lot of different things. Mainly power takeoff unit is what it's referred to if it's a small little transfer case that bolts up to the transmission. However, to me, it's just a transfer case. What it does is it takes the input of the transmission, ships it back to the rear wheels. Now, not all-wheel drive cars will have this setup. Some will have a front differential independently, just really depends, but you always want to look at your specific vehicle. Now behind us, this '07 Pilot is going to have a transfer case or a power takeoff unit, whatever you prefer to call it, and it's going to have a rear differential. And it doesn't look like a standard rear differential that most of you will be used to looking at, but it still requires servicing. Both of these items have oil. They do have certain intervals you got to swap out the fluid in. And I'm going to show you exactly what we're referring to today, because like I said, when people buy an all-wheel drive car, they don't really think about maintenance in that aspect because they don't think they have 4x4 services and things like that. And it's very commonly overlooked. You'd be surprised at how many people I get in the shop with an all-wheel drive car that has over 100,000 miles, and when I recommend the fluids on the transfer cases or differentials, they look at me like I'm crazy, and then I have to pretty much explain to them what we're going to be talking about today. So let's get underneath the car. Let me show everyone what we're looking at. So we are underneath our Honda Pilot. Now our engine is going to be here. We have our transmission right here, and then we have our transfer case or PTO, whatever you prefer to call it. And this is commonly overlooked. Now, if you're not really into cars or the mechanical aspect of it, sometimes you'll look at this and just completely overlook it because it looks like it's a part of the transmission. However, this is a separate piece. Now, this requires its own fluid. Sometimes it could be gear oil or specialized fluid, but clearly you can see here that we have the drain for it. And what I'm gonna do is get everyone just a little bit closer. You can see our drain is right here. And then if you come off to the side, we have our fill right there, and all these bolts along the side are what bolted up to the transmission. Now this is commonly referred to as a transfer case or the PTO, as I mentioned. And what it does basically is there's a shaft coming out of the transmission that is driven that in turn drives this, which will turn a drive shaft. Now the drive shaft for us, if I don't know if the camera's gonna pick it up, but it's right here. This is the drive shaft that connects to the PTO or the transfer case. I'm just gonna call it a transfer case for the rest of this video because I hate saying both, but you can clearly see it attaches to the transmission. It has a drive shaft, and then if you bring it all the way down here, we have a center bearing, and I'm trying to study this camera as good as I can. And now right here we have this big weird looking thing. Now for those of you that are automotive people, and let me try to set my light here, and you've worked on a lot of cars, you'll look at this and say, that's not a differential. It looks nothing like a differential. And I agree. This is not your normal looking differential. Honda, when it came to these, they did this unique rear diff setup. And I'm not even sure exactly what all is encompassed in here, but I think this uses clutch packs and uses a torque vectoring or torque limiting type setup where it can transfer power to one or the other wheels depending. As a matter of fact, I think that is what they use. I think it's called VT4M or VTM4. Not exactly sure. To be honest with you, I didn't even look up the system prior to making this video. It's just mainly about fluids. Now, if you look at this, just looking at it, this looks like it's fairly expensive, very beefy item. And I know for a fact that these do have a specialty fluid that they take. And it's sort of similar to automatic transmission fluid. And if you were just doing regular maintenance and you're a DIYer, you would, commonly look at this and maybe skip it because it doesn't look like anything that it should look like. Now, I'm going to flip this around here just to give everyone a little bit of better access. And I do have a video, I don't know if it's posted yet, of me doing a service on one of these. Now you can tell these really don't get serviced very often just by seeing the amount of rust is on here. As a matter of fact, on this vehicle, this particular owner has not serviced this, and this vehicle has around 125 or 30,000 miles, I believe. And they've owned this as brand new and never done a service on it. And I believe it because look at where the drain is. This thing is ancient and rusted up. Looks like it's never really been touched. So for these rear differentials, even though it's not like a standard rear differential where you have a cover you may have to remove or anything like that, we have drains. So this would be our drain. And then if you go a little bit further up, we have our fill. We even have a notice up here that says use Honda Genuine VTM4 fluid only. And it takes quite a bit. It's about almost close to a gallon, I believe. These hold like 4 quarts, 4.5. I'm not exactly sure. I usually just buy a jug of it from Honda and pump away until it spills out. But this is a really highly intensive wear item. This does have clutch packs in there and gears that if you're not keeping up with the oil and keeping the oil fresh can cause a lot of damage. So this is what commonly gets overlooked on these cars. It's just people don't have it in their head. When people buy a pickup truck or a 4x4 truck, they know that they have to maintain it usually. And even that nowadays is still a 50-50 shot. But these are very overlooked on these all-wheel drive vehicles. And that's what I want to cover with this quick tip today, is just to inform people that if you have an all-wheel drive car, you have fluids that you need to maintain. It's very, very common. And you should be replacing these fluid depending on what your owner's manual says on intervals, or if you want to do it the old school way, every 30 to 50,000 miles depending on how you use the vehicle. So that's pretty much the tip that I wanted to share with everyone today. Hopefully everyone enjoyed this video. Like always, please comment, like, and subscribe because it definitely helps the channel grow. I hope everyone has a wonderful day, and I'll catch you on the next video.